What up? What up? It's Seed Talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. Oh man, we got a special one today, man. I've been wanting to have this brother on the program for a minute, and we finally got him, man. We got him. We got Rajnii is in the house. Give it up for Rajnii Eddins.
Blessings, family.
Word extraordinary. So much we want to talk about. I want to talk about first and foremost how we first met and everything and get into that. But let me take care of some house cleaning real quick, real quick before we even get started. It's a Seed Talk. I want you guys to and ladies and he, she, you know, whatever your pronouns are, mine are God and thinker. Want y'all to share and comment, please, man. Share and comment this and engage, you know, because we're gonna have a lot of questions, a lot of answers, a lot of feedback. If you got questions for Rajnii, please get into the comment and we'll respond to them. But we're gonna actively engage with this. He's gonna put his handles up there and you know how to get in contact with him and whatnot. I got my lay on right now, made of kukui nuts, and this is to pay homage to the Aboriginal, Native, Indigenous Hawaii through their tragedy and whatnot. And I do this to show solidarity with them. This necklace symbolizes a couple different things. The flowers, the one made with flowers is friendship, but the one with the kukui nuts represents wisdom and enlightenment. So, you know, shouts out, blessings, positive thoughts, prayers, meditations, and salutations, mahalo, all that, you know what I'm saying? Kanaka, Maoli, to the indigenous people there. I'm sorry if I, you know, got that mixed up. I got that that Howie accent, that American accent. I ain't got that island accent. If I said the name incorrect, pardon self, and just know that I spoke with my heart, not my lips. That in mind, let's get into it, man. I first met Rajnii at a venue called Cafe Solstice.
That's right.
I can't remember if it was the first or last Friday. I don't even know if it was a Friday, but it was the first or last, you know, day of the week. You know what I'm saying? And it was called Verbal Tea. And you got to get up there and you got to, you know, spit your spoken word verse. We had a lot of indigenous, black, brown, copper people. There was probably one of the few places where white folks were a minority. Real talk. It was on the Ave. It was up the street from the black-owned soul food restaurant, the vegan spot. Oh, it escapes my mind right now. I can't believe I can't remember the name, but it'll come.
Quickies?
Yes. Hillside Quickies.
That's right. Allende.
Yeah. Shout out to Allende. You know what I'm saying? He's one of our brothers from the 253. You know, we represent the 26 to 206 bones in our body. But it was a venue where it was something I look forward to, man. And I prepared my piece. I wanted to have a new, fresh piece. I did some crowd pleasers every now and again. I remember I had some really good pieces that I did there. And that's when I met him. And I also met Chogi. Rest in peace. He ended up passing away. I think of maybe a brain clot or something of that nature. I can't remember, maybe a stroke. And reason why I mentioned his cause of death, because it was very unexpected. I want to say Chogi was still in his 30s.
Right.
Yeah, he was in maybe his mid to late 30s when he passed there. And we were like, we lost a major icon in the city, kind of like when we lost John Moore, Wordseer. We were like, what is going on? People are not supposed to be passing away in the mid to late 30s and early 40s, but it happened. And it just made us appreciate life a lot more. And what it did for the city, I know for you and I specifically, it made us put more energy. They became orishas, they became spirit beings live through us, and we put it in our words. And we're definitely going to touch on that when we talk about the importance of spoken word. But that was, man, I think we were in our early 20s. I was probably 24, 25. I think I might be a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 years older than you. So who was Rajnii Eddins before Cafe Solstice and Verbal Tea? Who is Rajnii? What part of Seattle did you grow up? If you're even from Seattle, you might be a transplant like me. I'm from Cleveland, raised in Cleveland. I'm born in Cleveland, raised in Cincinnati, and came here when I was 12. Tell us about Rajnii. What is Rajnii Eddins' genesis story?
Well, thank you, brother. First of all, I just want to extend gratitude for you to hold space. I have a tremendous amount of respect, honor for you and your role in the community as an educator and as a person who holds a platform for media to share our stories and our narratives. So just want to name that gratitude first, and thankful to be here with you. Life's not promised, so we definitely got to honor our time over here. And I was a transplant as well. I came from San Jose, California, raised in Los Angeles till about 6 years old. My mother and I moved from Cali to Seattle in '86. So initially we lived out in Tukwila, for the first couple years or so. And then we transitioned to, I think, Beacon Hill for a while. We rode that Beacon Hill train for a second. And then we went out to like Sunset Terrace, like more like South Seattle, Renton, Skyway area. And so majority of my childhood was actually in Skyway. We were off not too far from like Lake Ridge and Bryn Mawr. I went to Lake Ridge. I went to Campbell Hill. I was brought up in the time in Seattle. I know you could identify too, where the Central District was still primarily Black community. So we went to Rites of Passage Experience. We went to the Central Area Motivation Project. We connected with mentors like Steve Sneed and Rico Bembry. My mom was actually the founder of the first Black writers group known as the African American Writers Alliance. So I started performing with them at age 11. But even prior to then, my mother always introduced the love for language to me. She would, create songs and stories and be playful with language. As I got older, when I turned about 9, my mother became a foster parent over to my cousins, and then over the course of 13 years, over 70 different children. So
did you wait? Hold on. Did you say 70 or 7?
70. That's over the course of like a decade and a half. So we had a lot of different brothers and sisters growing up, but my cousins were my first brothers and sisters because our family was hit hard by that same drug epidemic that they didn't have no empathy for like they do for the opioid crisis. So we went through that too. That was our own, and nobody else in the family could hold them down but Ma Dukes, and she was a single parent. So she really modeled for me the power of love for community. She always said that children are treasure, but people say a lot of things, but they don't go out and take care of other people's children and break their own back to take care of their own and community. So I saw that realize and crystallize in really powerful ways, being immersed in that love for creative expression that she fostered me in, and having to read her poems back to her with feeling, whether I wanted to or not, with feeling was big, right? So her bringing me into spaces with her and feeding me love and encouragement and believing in my craft as a burgeoning artist and creative, and then being immersed in a rich community of like Wally Guest and Kabibi and Dr. Georgia McDade and Ruby Darris and Michael Haro, all these amazing artists of intergenerational variants and unique expressions and gifts really tremendously bolstered my love for the craft and connected me with a grander array of possibilities of what the power of word sound power could do. So I'm always thankful to her for that. So that was my primary experience. My mother founded the African American Writers Alliance, and that was what first fostered my gift in writing and being able to share and create. And then we co-founded a group called the Poetry Experience. AWA was founded in '91. The Poetry Experience began in '98. And that was more open to a multi-ethnic array of youth. Many folks who are still active today in terms of youth engagement and community building found a lot of support and resource and mutual inspiration in that circle.
Yeah. So what was your mom's, main profession? Because I always, it makes sense that your mom, taught writing or, was kind of like that resource for people in the community, because you and I kind of share a lot of intersection, and you remind me a lot of myself because you always have clever ways of saying something that's very common. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like when we were talking before we got on, Like instead of saying like, oh, we're going to promote, you know, this experience that we got, or promote a show, you said we're going to do certain things to amplify it. And that's one of the things I like to do as a poet, as a speaker, as a writer, and as an artist. I go out of my way, you know, and I don't apologize for it. Like I go out of my way to use unique ways to say something. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to sound like common folks. There's nothing wrong with common folks and how they talk. I just like to be unique. Where did that come from? Like, what did your mom and also your father, like, what did they do for a living to really inspire and implant that seed of such a robust vocabulary?
Well, my mother always impressed upon me the power of language. You know, her encouraging me to recite her pieces, even before I began writing myself, caused me to witness the power that emphasis and intonation and transforming of the way that you speak something has a musicality to it, and that you can, with the intention and the way that you sculpt a piece and the way you deliver it, take people on a journey that transports them. So I think, yeah, that really stuck with me, heart to heart. You know, also a lot of her content has to do with our affirmation of Black people and our survival and thriving and honoring our stories and connections and showing love for children and recognizing a lot of the heinous and really tragic things that go on in the world, and the need for love and grace, and providing spaces that have soft landing, tenderness and compassion and care for embracing people in their full authenticity. So all those things really tremendously informed my journey to now, such that I couldn't picture myself doing any other work. You know, I was literally shaped by a person who demonstrated with their lives their true dedication and devotion to youth and community. So that I have to honor that consistently.
Mm-hmm. So it was just basically you and your mom?
Yeah,
No.
that's me. Me and mom's was mainly the ones. Yeah, mom was a single parent. Didn't really know pops well. He wasn't safe to me to be around initially, and we went through a lot of different, travails and trials and triumphs together. And I witnessed how she responded and went the extra mile to support not just us, but any folks who were going in a tight. And that really meant the world to me, just to see how she extended herself and showed up in community and made our house a place of solace and sanctuary for so many people. I mean, Gabriel Teodros, A Son, Germ, Rufio, Cyrita, Julie C, Irwin.
So what y'all, if you're not from Seattle, he just now named off he named off Germ, he named off A Son, he named off Gabriel Teodros. These are prominent people in the city who are strong artistic, you know what I'm saying, contributors, to the culture of Seattle, whether it be spoken word, whether it be hip hop, whether it be all of the above. So I would like to think with her support, they were able to be the artists that they are, today. I just now got finished seeing Gabriel Teodros performing with, with Abyssinian Creole. You know what I'm saying?
Beautiful. Yeah, Khalil Crisis too. Yeah. These are all folks who were regulars in the house, who had opportunities to engage, who had soft landing spot at our homes. And we engaged as youth when my mom was the adult, who was like a mentor of sorts, who held space for our love and fostering of our creativity in ways that maybe some adults didn't have the tools to, or the care and consideration to know that that was important. So definitely, I feel like all of us carry a part of that treasure with us in the things that we do.
That's crazy, because now I'm really starting to put everything together of why, like, so when you talk about like Seattle hip hop, there's always those different factions and those different hip hop sets and different tribes. You got tribal with Vitamin D and Top,
Right.
and those, and those cats, right? But then you also got like cats like Maroon Colony,
First Platoon, yeah.
Yep. And then you got, people like Jason Black, you know what I'm saying? Then you got Danny, with with the whole Zulu Nation.
Matt K, yeah.
Just listening to this story about your mom, and she was like, she started her own like label.
Bruh,
she,
the
she had
house was
a
it. Like that
so
spot
listen,
on 120th Place, 87th Avenue, long driveway. It was like a mystical journey. You know, this long driveway with ends in a like circular fish pond area, and it's overlooking like Boeing and lined with blackberry bushes and like apple trees and pear trees. And folks would come up to the house and we would just build on the porch, scribe. Like I got a picture with myself, with Macklemore, pre-Macklemore. You know, so these are folks who were poured into as youth and held space for in ways, but by Black mothers' household that cared unconditionally about fostering the gifts and nurturing a safe space for youth to create and have support and positive
that's
affirmation.
dope, because people need to know that, because like when specifically with people like Ben, we know him as Ben Haggerty, you know what I'm saying,
Right.
or Macklemore, you know, he is such a big success, and in his defense, and shout out to him, not only with his song, you know, White Privilege, not only when he tried to give his Grammy away to Kendrick Lamar that one year, say I don't deserve it, but
Right.
he's always been a person to be like, man, I wouldn't be here without my Black and copper ancestors. But you telling this story, it really provides that resource to let you know why he became such the multi-dimensional hip-hop artist he is, that he can go from making a hip-hop song to making something so pop, to making something that sounds so poetic, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Neon Cathedrals, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Or another song like off his current album called Tears, which is extremely poetic, or even the song White Privilege sounds like hip-hop spoken word. So I appreciate you. I salute you, and I salute your mother, you know what I'm saying, for providing that space, you know what I'm saying, for artists, you know, to be successful and grow into, you know, who they are. I wanted to ask you a couple more Genesis questions, but not having your father there and whatnot, and because I know how it impacted me, and I think about this a lot, especially in my older age. How did that impact you as a person, as a father, and even as an artist?
Oh my goodness. In a multiplicity of ways, you know, that the absence, I think as a child, you go through different uh kind of waves of processing what that means to not have your other parent around, whether it's like having a personal sense of accountability, like it was your fault that they weren't around, or like you did something wrong to not have them be there, or like that curiosity, like, well, how will I be as a father? Who do I draw examples from? So it kind of put me in a place of seeking out um, examples of manhood from a variety of different sources. You know, so we're fortunate to have some pretty powerful, upstanding, contributing Black men in the community that I got access to, like Steve Sneed, like Rico Bembry, like Isaiah, like, you know, folks who were stand-up dudes who show love and support for community and model that in beautiful ways. Like my older brother Theaster Gates too, who's the world renowned artist now as well. My mom what she did really well was, in that absence, exposing me to positive brothers of a vast array of examples of Black manhood. So I think that gave me a rich understanding, like, hey, that community is not one thing, a household is not one thing, it has many different forms. So I eventually came to that conclusion, like, okay, this absence may be an absence, but it's also the form that it takes. So it's my own personal origin story. So we draw from it this way. So I had to learn, like we've had to learn as Black people in many different respects, where we don't have all of our family members present, that we have to use the best of the elements that we have access to.
Yeah, you said Rico Bembry and Isaiah Anderson. You must have been a Langston Hughes kid too, then.
Trust. Yeah. I mean, when my mother and I first co-founded Poetry Experience, it was because I was noticing like all the bars and amazing like creative self-expression of my peers, you know, of a vast array of different ethnicity and background. They let me know, oh yeah, people in AWA, the brothers and sisters in AWA are mainly adults. I'm the only child member, and everybody's beautiful in that space. But I'm hearing my peers spit like crazy masterpieces, whole cloth, extemporaneously, just like spontaneously out the blue, off the freestyle. So I was like, man, we need a space too that just holds space for the richness of our youth voice in terms of that golden era hip hop. My mom was like, well, we can make it happen. So we first started at Douglas Truth Library in 98. I think at that meeting it was like me, her, and a son. Just like that's three, maybe another member. And it moved from there eventually to Langston Hughes Cultural Arts Center. It kept growing. People like Aaron Walker Loud and King's Crisis, Gabriel Teodros, Julie C., uh, Alex, Nicole, Atchison Payne, Andrew Pollock, Andrew Woods. So many people came to that space, a vast array of identification, in terms of personality and identity. It was just a rich array, and it was a space where, some people even had their own issues or challenges or biases against other people. So identities or ways of being, they're in that space. Those things were not present though, because it was fostered in a way that everybody showed love. We always open and close with the same affirmation. It goes, may those from under our feet breathe the warmth of community unto us, so that the peace and creativity we seek mounts our bodies and sits on the chairs of our hearts, spreading joy and love around us all. Ashe. And people who were there remember that. We all held hands in a circle. Teens, adolescents, held hands. It was prayerful, it was reverent, it was sacred, it was spiritual. And I think that fosters something so beautiful and powerful and creative that even if people don't fully realize it, it informs a crucial part of how we move in the world today.
Yeah, when we talk about the importance of spoken word in marginalized, underprivileged, communities of color or of melanin, I should say, that's a perfect example of why it's so important. Because it becomes a conduit for not only unity, but also intimacy, love, and healing.
Mm.
People don't understand how relaxing and
Cathartic.
a sense of healing it comes with feeling safe enough to let your guard down in an urban setting where there's so much unsafety around you, to let your guard down and hold another person's hand, especially of the same sex, especially if you're a Black man, and feel comfort in it and feel solace and comfortability, you know what I'm saying, is very important. I have a real personal question to ask you, and it's more so of a compliment, for me, looking from a distance because I admire you so much. I don't know if people can really say the same for me, but I can say this about you. I've never seen you upset. I've never seen you angry. I've never seen you in any kind of conflict. Where do you think that comes from? You have a very calm and peaceful demeanor. Very like you live what I would say very effortlessly. I don't know if you're aware of that, but as an outsider looking in, what do you think, and how do you respond from hearing that from an outsider? Where do you think that comes from?
No, I think I have a very close and intimate relationship with being intentionally peaceful, for my own health and wellness, and also because as a child, as I grew, I held a lot of different anger, and I had to find a way to alchemize it and have a cathartic outlet for it that could provide me a useful, constructive vehicle so I wouldn't be consumed by it. And I think too, because my mother entrusted me to be relied upon so actively whenever youth who had past traumas entered our household, that if they didn't tell her what was going on, they usually confided in me. I learned early on that holding space in a way that's genuinely demonstrating care and love and value and positive affirmation in a peaceful and gentle and kind way even if it doesn't have an immediate impact, eventually it begins to allow for a transformation in people who are dealing with trauma. And, I remember, God rest her soul, my brother Kazi's niece, Khadijah, came to stay with us for a time when she was a baby. And the first time she saw me, she screamed and ran under the tables because she had some prior trauma. I remember as a youth, was feeling really hurt and like what has this baby seen that would cause that, right? But with consistently holding the space and consciousness, she saw that I was not the example of maybe men she had seen in the past or experience with adults she had seen in the past. She opened up and became much more warm as she would look for me. We made a connection, and it just it never ceased to amaze me and affirm me to see that consistently displayed holds space for healing in untold ways. And I think that was what really imbued that in me in a crucial way, was seeing how it could be a gift to others and how it made me feel active in my purpose in a useful way. Like there were things that would be told me first that my mother couldn't have necessarily received. So let me know, I have a vital role to play here.
Right. That's dope. Thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about spoken word, man. When did you really see yourself getting serious about this? Like, how did it start with you? I know you. Oh, it started. You mentioned that it started with you reciting your mother's poetry, and that really, planted a seed in you, and you start writing your own. When did you start saying, "Man, I really"? Because sometimes when children they feel like they're forced and directed to do something that their parents are doing, they feel like, like their parents is kind of have an out of body experience, and
right,
kind of like, oh man, the parents are living through them. I see a lot of that when I used to coach basketball. It's like, your son don't even want to play basketball, dude. Like,
that's you.
Yeah, exactly. He probably want to be home, like, building a castle out of random Legos. You know what I'm saying? Or, what I'm saying? Playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Pokemon cards. But what was it about spoken word that you said, I want to take this and I want to create something and put my brand and my name on it, and I wanted to actually market it to the point where it leads to me being a full-time, poet and artist? Like, when did you start to make that pivot?
I mean, well, at the time where I first started writing, the first poem I wrote was actually from a school assignment at an all-black private school that Jace's mom ran called Marcus Garvey. So I went to Marcus Garvey back in the day when it was in the South End, I think off of Graham, and Molly Guest was one of my teachers. It was Kumba, the day of creativity, and Kwanzaa. And the assignment was you could do anything creative, write a story, a poem, sing a song, act something out, visual art, anything you want to do that's aligned with creativity. And so at that time, I knew what a poem was from my mother's tutelage, but I wanted to get a sense from Molly Guest what the assignment was. So I said, well, what is your definition of a poem? She said it can be anything, your thoughts, your feelings on something, you have total creative freedom. So I was like, man, I could just write anything. So I wrote this poem called For the Last Time that was about domestic violence. And I showed it to her. And she was like, you didn't write that. I was like, oh man, it must be good. When a doe does that to you, like, oh, that's not you. Like, yeah, that really is me though. So I started, I shared it with my mom. She said, you should share it with your mom. So I did. And my mom was like, oh, would you be interested in performing with the AWA? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I did that poem for the last time. Like, I probably didn't write another poem for another year and a half. It just felt good to have adults have to listen to what I said. And my mom, after a while, started making me do a disclaimer. She's like, tell these people that I'm not domestically abused. Like, this is boy's imagination. Don't have nothing to do with us. But but it let me know too, like, you can write something and express it so vividly that people think that's your story. Right? So it gave me a kind of keen insight into the inner world of creativity and self-expression, where you can really transport somebody into a different world and they could see that literally. But as I grew older and I started developing more interest in writing and not just kind of doing that same piece, but exploring different dimensions of my own expression and experience, I began to realize, oh, you can do this well. And like, and for a while, it was all about applause. It was like, oh man, adults have to listen to what I have to say. Like, where else do youth get that? I'm the only child in a group of adults. That's a huge self-confidence booster. When adults are seeing you as a peer creatively, even if not a peer age-wise, right? So that did wonders for bolstering me in my sense of self-concept. And then it wasn't probably till I was like 13 or 14 when I started connecting with the Astor, who's like a world-renowned, artist and kind of rock star in the art world in terms of bridging and unifying Black artists around the world. He asked me, he said, you're really good at art and sharing your voice and expressing yourself through poetry. You have a gift at that. He said, do you ever think about what you want to use it for? And no one ever asked me that. So I was like, wow, you mean more than just getting applause? Right? Like there's more than just getting some positive affirmation from adults, because that's what I was receiving, feeling good about just having the opportunity to create, even though I was speaking about, things like a teen would, like crushes. I was also speaking about a crucial connection to our ancestors and having a spiritual connection with them that allowed us to be mediums for them. There are all these things that were coming up in my writing as a youth that when he spoke that, it sparked something to me. And I thought, wow, if I could use this gift that he called it a gift for anything, what would I use it for? So that gave me a lot more intention in terms of, if you want to use your gifts, then you have to know that gifts are to be given, that they're not just for your own adulation or aggrandizement, but they have a utility and a purpose that extends beyond the individual expressor. So that was a huge transformational moment for me.
Mm. And so tell us about how, it ended up that I met you at Verbal Tea at Cafe Solstice. Like, how did you get involved in that? And how did you get to the point where, you're going to be at something, what I'm saying, on a regular basis, and then talk about like all the different places and the opportunities and experiences that spoken word has taken you.
Oh my goodness. I mean, well, we had so many opportunities to engage and share with community and build and foster relationships with our peers in different respects, to invite people to the poetry experience once it was founded. I mean, once my mother and I co-founded the poetry experience, it put a battery in my pack to go out there and recruit. Because even though I was kind of a shy dude, like I was like, I can go out there and bridge folks and say, hey, you like poetry? We got a spot to come through and you can come and write. Oh, you never wrote before? You can come and read anything you want to share. It's a safe space for you to create. But this is before people even use language safe space. This is, what I'm saying? It's like opportunity for you to share and create and express yourself no matter what's on your heart and mind. And everybody gets love, no matter what. And that's the purpose, And so that opened me up to be a bridge and part of a conduit that lent itself to bring us together in a greater formation that allowed us as young people to witness the power of our voices in really poignant, like mind-opening ways, and to see that medium, from my personal perspective, as a way that could touch hearts and minds in dynamic ways, that could open doorways, that could speak to the times, that could speak to the need for transformation of the times, that could heal wounds, that could honor love, that could express anger and rage and not result in like violence or someone's death, that could have all of these different formations and extensions that could provide a vehicle for us to feel liberated. So, I mean, out of that, we started seeking out other spaces too. We learned about Asang Mahal. We learned about Basement Nation. We learned about Verbal Tea. We created Ethos at Hillside Quickie with Germ. We started having all these different outgrowths. Stage Cafe came about. There's all these different spaces throughout the Seattle area that were during such a rich golden era in time of hip hop's rebirthing in intergenerational format, that was also fostering our love for language and creativity and being uniquely ourselves. Because at the time, of course, you had to have skill at what you were doing. It was important and it was valued as an ethic to be uniquely yourself, authentically, and to have skills and creativity and wit and candor and vocabulary and substance and content and meaning. These were values, right? So was hugely important.
Yeah, so you were a part of the Isama Hall too. We probably crossed paths there too. For people who don't know, Isama Hall was something that was started by our Pinoy Panay, Filipino community. So I know Freedom brought me in.
Shout out to JoJo, Geologic, yeah, Blue Scholars, all that fam, yeah.
Yeah. So I became like a honorary Negrito. Well, I guess I'm not an honorary Negrito. I mean, I'm Negrito, man. You know what I'm saying? Because we all have those that commonality, those Aboriginal roots. That Filipino people, they we all look alike. You know what I'm saying? They say that they're the Twa. You know what I'm saying? What they might call the pygmy, but we probably crossed paths with the Sama Hall that was out that ran out of Wing Luke Museum over there in the International District. So that led to you going on and doing things like, who are some spoken word artists that were out during that time or when you were coming up, specifically spoken word, that you admired and you looked up to?
Oh man, there's so many jewels. I mean, I went to a alternative high school called Middle College High School. So of course, I mean, this year is this 25-year high school reunion too, in addition to the 25-year anniversary of poetry experience. So there, I mean, MC is in the title, MC High School. There were so many creative artists and like giants who are still active to this day in many multidimensional capacities. So, like Olisa, Spicy, crazy bars, crazy vocalist, phenomenal instructor and student and teacher of theater and like a pedagogist, like so many different skills. We had ciphers with Aaron Walker Loud on the beatbox and Germ and Yidam Sek and Pearl and Issei, that Samoan brother who's actually going to be joining us for a good portion of the 25-year anniversary celebration. You had sisters like Body Soul, with Laura Peace Kelly called Piece of Soul. Dynamic duo, like vibrant sister artists who were touching the mic and just ripping stuff to shreds and shutting stuff down in ways that you could not front on. And so I'm like, all of these people deeply impacted my walk, and being embedded in community with them and witnessing them and being witnessed let me know, oh, we got our own Marvel. You know what I'm saying? We got our own superhero clique where like nobody's lacking. Everybody's fostering each other's gifts. And you got Cypher at the table in Seattle Central. You be ciphering at the bus stop on Broadway. It was thick. It was this creative energy everywhere. And the connection to creativity and liberation and social justice and community development, it was just osmosis, all breathed into each other.
Yeah, I remember. Thanks for sharing that, man. Laura Peace Kelly. You brought us some names. Spicy. Shout out to Laura, man. I miss her. I ain't seen her in a while. But yeah, her and I, we're supposed to have a hip hop group. Me, her, Robert Warren. Actually, he was Boney B back in the day. He's Child now. But she went to Holy Names, and Rob and I, we went to O'Day. We were supposed to have a rap group back in the day because we were so inspired by Diggable Planets. Shout out to Ishmael Butler, Butterfly. But yeah. But then I grew up to just really admire, like, Tia, Tia, well, formerly Tia Fields, but now she's Tia Yarbrough, what I'm saying? And I just remember Chogi and yourself, doing your thing. I thought y'all were really good and talented at your craft. There's a healthy competitiveness, in spoken word and hip hop. That's why I appreciate both art forms, in both frequencies, because like the person that's next to you, all, for me personally, I'm very competitive against the highest part of myself, and other people usually push me to, to be better. But I just remember y'all always push me to create that piece. I was like, oh man, I gotta write something that's, and Allende, man, he got busy too. Allende was nice too.
Right.
Then I know, Merciful. He went by Merciful back then. He goes by
Kenyatta. Yeah. Oh my God.
He goes by Magnetic now. But
Magnetic Morpheus. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But just on the national scene, like Black Ice, when I remember when Def Poetry used to come on. I remember just watching that and being like, oh, man, they were just phenomenal. But I remember specifically there was one experience that changed my life. and that was Saul Williams in Slam. And when
Right.
he did that one piece, and I was like, oh man, that poem changed my life because, and then I ended up seeing him like when Bumper Shoot was a baby, because I think that my partner and I, you know, we were the first hip hop group to ever perform at Bumper Shoot. That was back in the day when it was free and there was hardly anyone going there. But I remember seeing Saul Williams at Bumper Shoot. He showed up with himself and an MPC, and he was programming everything, and he would just program a beat, walk up to the mic, and he did that piece live, and I was just like, oh my goodness, it was amazing.
Right.
He changed my life, man. He changed
Bro,
my
when Slam came out, like
yeah.
that was such a force of nature. I have a very specific memory of Saul Williams, because there was a time where when I first created this piece, because if you remember, the new Apollo, Priest Amin, was active with Vicky at Life Enrichment Books. He hit me up, and I had always been wanting to write a piece about our ancestors' experience in the transatlantic enslavement. And I never felt like I could do it justice. I felt like, man, this is something I want to do, but do I have enough wisdom or insight to do our ancestors justice after all they've been through? And he asked me one time, he said, you know, Vicky is putting on an event at Life Enrichment Books. It's called a Ma'afa. The time we remember our ancestors, and like, well, you want to know if you'd be willing to like write a piece and come perform it. So I felt like, oh man, this is like the creator and the ancestors giving me permission, because this is something I struggled with for the longest, but now I'm being requested to do it. So I wrote this piece called Middle Passes, and I shared it there. And I remember sharing it at Cafe Solstice when Saul Williams was in the building. And like, he came up to me and shook my hand. He was like, peace, young. I was like, oh, I got the seal of approval. I was like, it's crazy when you see people who you idolize, who you see in like stuff as like the epitome of something, the example of what you can do with a thing. Right, and then they come to you and they're like, man, you got it. That was like, what? This is the moment. But then later on, of course, Laura Peace Kelly was teamed up with all those people. She was the first Def Jam poet from Seattle. So we had definitive connection from people in our own hood who were getting love on a global level as the example and the models of this craft. So that all those things were like golden seals, right? That spoke life into honoring and affirming that we were meant to do this. This is purposeful. This is given to us. It's a part of who we are. And it's not something you could fake. It's just like us through and through. I mean, even with Nebra and Mansa having the Mecca on 23rd and Central, but when the Central was still the Central, like, cats don't know. Like, you see people out here and they look at you like, what are you doing here? Like, this is the Central District. You don't know the rich Mecca. It was a Mecca. It was an oasis. It was a place where youth were fostered, where culture was cultivated, where beauty and gems and treasures untold were enriched and given freely. And those are things that were still with us to this day. It's the reason why we have to speak life into the memories and the narratives so they can't be erased. And so we can recreate those ties and connections and foster new youth connections to self-actualize their voice and keep those ethics strong.
Right. You said so much in that little bit of piece. Real quick, shout out to Sister Vicky. Rest in poetry to Vicky. Rest in pages to Vicky. Life Enrichment Bookstore. We all grew up in there. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Banu, who worked there. I mean, Sister Vicky was such a cultural landmark, a living landmark in Orisha, for our community, because she provided so much employment, but also a safe place for us to feel, heal, build, and grow community. And you also mentioned Ma'afa. So shout out to Marimba Ani, who wrote Yurugu, who coined the term Ma'afa, which is the African Holocaust. I'm just, brother drops a whole bunch of, breadcrumbs and Easter eggs. I gotta add on to them. And then I'll shout out to the Mecca International. That's actually where I got married. I got married at the Mecca International. So it was a place where you could go, get you some cafe snacks. You can get some African art. You can get some books, and then you can get live, live music with drums and a DJ, and even
Yeah, Anonymous is on there, like Anonymous Maroon Colony, the band members like Cliff and Evan, Flory Barnes, like all these different critical heads. Like people don't necessarily realize how tightly connected and woven hip hop, what they call spoken word, or just like poetry, performance poetry, jazz, all these rich elements that are African in origin, and like kind of hybridized with our American journey, how deeply related and interconnected these mediums are. And we were seeing it in real time in a multiplicity of ways in our peers. And that beauty is like, it's infused in us.
Right. Real quick. So that brings me to my next question. So, a lot of, Vitamin and I, we we go back and forth on this, man. And I feel like he's just a funny cat, man. And one of the debates we always get into it, he's like, "Oh man, this spoken word that's not hip hop," and we go back and forth. And my artifact for it is "Retrospective Life" by Common and Lauryn Hill, and it's a spoken word piece that he said was a letter to his unborn child, that he basically conceded to the abortion. Him and his partner at the time agreed that she have an abortion. So he ended up writing a letter. It is the most powerful hip hop song ever. For me, it is. And it's so emotional and whatnot. But he was like, "Oh man, that ain't no damn hip hop, man. That's, spoken word is not hip hop." So, I know you might be a little bit biased, but what do you think? It's obvious that spoken word and hip hop share some intersectionality, but do you think hip hop is spoken word and spoken word hip hop?
I mean, I think that the way that music has been historically like segregated and kind of compartmentalized isn't always the most necessary, because so much of it being expression bleeds in and out of itself and is inherently interconnected. So when you have like Amiri Baraka on a Roots album, is that still hip hop? Are the Last Poets hip hop? Because they were performing before hip hop was a word. Is that still hip hop? It's like, it's a question that bears merit, and it kind of depends on the person. In my personal opinion, it's like going to your family reunion and you're gonna look at the plate and be like, "Are these greens and these mashed potatoes and this macaroni and cheese? Is this all part of? It's all part of the meal. It's all part of what like nourishes us and like fosters our sense of self-concept, affirms us, encourages us." Now, some people are from a perspective too where they think hip hop has to be definitively like intense and like overly like masculine and have like hard, like forceful bars in the way that you share. And the difference, I think, in spoken word is spoken word and poetry itself can be anything. It's like the awkward cousin who just chooses to be himself. Like, why is he dressed up in like striped bell bottoms and like he has spiky hair and he's just doing his thing? He feels like that one day, he feels like this another day. I think poetry gives a lot more room to be unapologetically yourself. But the more that's allowed in hip hop, as it was allowed in the 90s and in spaces where we intentionally cultivate that ethic, then we see the power and the potency of what culture can be. Then that way, like all those things inform our journey. So my opinion, like I see them deeply related and interconnected, because when I was writing with like A-Sun and Germ and Drew and Rufio and King Chasm, Danny and Gabriel Chiodros, all these folks, we were sharing poetry and we were sharing raps, and like they bled into each other. It was more so just about genuine self-expression, and that made it something that was always useful and valuable and appreciated.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. To add on to what you said, and to give another perspective of it, I see is like hip hop is the heartbeat. I see spoken word, the word is the story, which is the blood. And there's no coincidence to me that griot, which is storyteller in French, but the original word is jali, it means the blood.
Mm.
It means the blood. So me speaking is the blood. It is the current, it is the plasma, it is the fluid that runs through a community that keeps it alive. And so I'm like, if beatboxing can be hip hop, if being an entrepreneur can be hip hop, if breakdancing can be hip hop, if graffiti can be hip hop, if DJing can be hip hop, if rapping can be hip hop, then what's the difference between rapping and spoken word? It's nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the beautiful thing about spoken word is I've been at so many spoken words where there is no music. For a matter of fact, a lot of spoken word artists, including myself, when someone be trying to get on their drums, like, no, I got this.
Let the word be the instrument. Yeah.
My word is the instrument. You're going to hear the drums. You're going to hear the different, different syncopations and whatnot. And my mouth and my tongue and my larynx and my voice box becomes a whole instrument in itself. And I start changing, different tones and speaking different ways and changing characters and stuff. So to me, spoken word is hip hop. Okay, so let's do a quick pivot, and transition real quick. Speaking of that, speaking of events and whatnot, talk about what you got going on, and when is it going on, and why is it going on? I'm so excited. This is a great big endeavor. Go ahead and pull it up, man. Man, we need a script, man, for this because we need to get all the information out there. If you're just now joining us, we got Rajnii Eddins on the show. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that you guys are donating, whatnot, to speak on it. You can donate to Rajnii Eddins on his Cash App. Slavery's over. So we want to donate for our time. He is a full-time artist. So he can take anything that you're willing to give and make sure that you're donating to us, Sea Talk and whatnot. But tell us about what you got going on for the first week of September to bring in Virgo season.
Man, it's a blessing. I'm glad you introduced it like that too, because it is cosmic.
Yeah,
it's a blessing. I mean, look at the convergence. We have so many intersections right now. You have the 50-year anniversary of hip hop, right? Based on if you go by that date. We have the 25-year anniversary of the poetry experience, which is the outgrowth of my mother's group, as I stated, African American Writers Alliance, that we co-founded, and that so many people as youth were really immersed in. That was an enriching and fulfilling and mutually inspiring experience that the majority of still do work in that vein to this day. Like I went through a list in my head because that came to me recently. I was really thinking deeply about this. I was like, every time I've been going back to the Central District and to Washington and Seattle and going to the spaces that really raised me, that I remember having a cipher here, that we were engaged with family and community, that these things informed our journey. And it's just lily white. And people looking at us like we're the strangers. And I'm hearing from when I'm away about all these sad tales of like youth violence and folks being harmed and like being exploited and like put into really harmful spaces, and it's hurting my heart. And I'm thinking like, man, people don't know these stories. Like, what could it mean if like we intentionally created avenues to preserve our narratives in vibrant ways that got to be honored consecutively in ways that create perpetuity and legacy-based traditions that allow us to foster these things continuously, that bring new youth into the fold, that can spark their voices. Because as we know, if you have agency over your voice, you have agency over your story, and you get to write your story. Like writing stories, writing poetry gets you to breathe life into the word sound power that has manifestational powers, that gives you the opportunity to maybe envision your life in ways that you didn't see as possible before. And that's what our youth so sorely need. That's what our community so sorely needs, envisioning greater possibilities and returning to the act. So I thought, why don't we go back to that space and pick up the pantheon of voices of all these rich participants and contributing uh, artists and expressors, to be able to create a website and a documentary that this can live on in perpetuity and bring new people into the fold. And why don't we have a week of festivities to bring those original members into spaces that can create that same dynamics, where we can Voltron, in a manner of speaking, and like feel that same unified energy, and then create the scaffolding of relational rapport to have it be an annual practice. So that's what we did. We got folks now coming for the Poetry Experience 25th year anniversary celebration. We have events from the 4th through the 9th. So I'll read them off to you. And please spread the word and let folks who are interested know about it. Let youth know, especially about the opportunities to have experiences in writing workshops and find spaces to heal and restore and affirm and be positively encouraged for that vulnerable self-expression that is so liberating and uplifting. So it begins on Monday, the 4th of September. The first event is from 7 to 9 p.m. at a space called the Lemon Grove. That's a Black-owned vintage clothing store on 2nd and Jackson. I believe it's 165 South Jackson Street. And Tiffany Wilson, you know, the town's bird song vocalist, like phenomenal, like R&B extraordinaire. Me and Tiff go back a piece because we used to run the Lo-Fi for a minute. Rest in peace to the Lo-Fi. We used to run the live funk, soul, hip hop, rock and roll band. It was all improv. We did that stuff for like 3-4 years. Everything was freestyle. I'm like, it pains me we never recorded that, because we was making like solid albums every Wednesday. I would travel down from Tacoma, get on the mic, stay up, maybe go to Tiff's spot. She be cooking, or we go to like Honey Court, shoot back up. So she's going to be blessing the stage at the Lemon Grove. Kelsey Richardson, phenomenal educator and poet, will be there. Brother Issei, who I spoke of, who was crucial part of like Langston Hughes and Douglas Truth and the Central District period, who always been blessing the folks with word, sound, power, and speaking to the strength and spiritual vitality of indigenous culture. And myself, I'll be sharing as well. And it's going to be a beautiful experience. So definitely spread the word there. Wednesday, the 6th, will be at Douglas Truth Library, 2300 East Yesler Way, 23rd and Yesler. That's right. That's where the Poetry Experience first began. So it's only right that we come touch the original soil and breathe life into those moments that created us and did so much to germinate us to now, so that we can do it for the next to come. Thursday, the 7th, will be at the Blue Cone on Capitol Hill, 1520 11th Avenue, sharing some more poetry with the original members. That'll include Monique Franklin, sister who runs the Poetry Festival in the South End, Sister Ebo, myself, Roberto Escalon, and Issei. So that's going to be a huge to-do. Friday, the 8th, we'll be back at Rainier Beach Library, again holding space for youth and writing workshops. So if you know of any youth point people, organizations, institutions, youth service providers, don't hesitate to reach out to me at theirnamesoremine@gmail.com, or check out my website and find a way to contact me, because it's all about finding ways to give back and reciprocate the energy that we receive from our elders, that we want to pass on to new youth coming into the circle, to find ways to spark their voice, because they may not have had the opportunity to access it or to be sparked in vibrant ways. Like we had so much consistent opportunity that we didn't know was grace at the time. We didn't know that was grace. We didn't know that that would not always be. So definitely, if you have any people, you know, who on your heart, who you know could benefit from it, that's youth in all community, definitely feel welcome to come join us. And then Poetry Experience Writing Workshop will have another one on Saturday the 9th from 1 to 3 on the block at Chop House Row Courtyard, 1424 11th Avenue. Same deal. Everybody's welcome. Come spit, come get fed, spiritually, mentally, relationally, come share fellowship. And then that same day, the 9th, for On the Block on the main stage, we got straight legends of like 90s pioneer hip hop. Like you got E-Real or Black Anger. Who knows about Black Anger? If you know about Black Anger, you are ahead. Logic, no. You got to go up mixtapes. You gotta know about these heads, right? Real.
Yeah, E-Real, aka Asim, and Kendu, you know what I'm saying? E-Real, he's Asim, he's from Tacoma. He went to Lincoln High School, and then Kendu, I think he's a transplant from, I think, Virginia. But yeah, man, they were one of the dopest hip hop groups, you know what I'm saying, in Western Washington, hands down.
Hands down, hands down. And
Yeah.
he's coming out of quite a bit of uh, uh, like the world hasn't heard this man come and
Yeah.
rock the stage for a minute. So you're getting
Yeah,
grace
him
with
and I,
like legendary.
we did a song together about 4 or 5 years ago. We did a cut together, So yeah, he gets busy though. He reminds me of Talib Kweli, that style. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
For real, he's a fierce one, and so he'll be coming out with a brother Jamar, I believe, and maybe another vocalist. I'll be rocking again. Sister Monique Franklin's back, Issei's back, and we got the additional accompaniment of O.R. Runga, who's the Sultan of the Trumpet, the Sultan of Swag. He used to
Yeah.
rock with Ben Haggerty and Macklemore, but even
Yep.
before then, he's always been a force of nature on jazz sets, on the community sets, building. We had events on Capitol Hill with Alicia Ba. When Ebony Arunga we was doing it with Going In, like we had a lot of rich history of musicality and really valuable, vital, like vibrant contribution. So
Yeah,
him,
Owar gets busy, man. We did some music together. He did, a few griot party experiences. And then him and his sister get busy too. If you can check them out with their music too. They got he plays the horn and she raps. He's a phenomenal MC. Can they find out about this on RajneeEddins.com? Can they find out about this there?
you sure can. Go to www.rajneeeddins.com and also feel welcome to contact me directly. Their names are mine at gmail.com, and my email address is on there as well.
Okay.
In addition, like Aaron Walker Loud will be rocking with OR. Aaron's a pivotal instrumentalist with Big Row Breaks, does a host of different youth engagement and always been building, homie from the Central. He was a vibrant part of Poetry Experience back in the day, and they'll be holding space for a freestyle cipher to close out the performance. So it's all going to be a rich reanimation and reactivation of all of these foundational relationships and musical and poetic and creative collaborative partnerships that is so necessary to inspire, empower, and encourage ourselves and our community, and to ensure that we continue these practices moving forward. This is only the first one of many to come.
Okay, man. Well, I got to get up out of here, man. But you know how we do every C Talk. We have to have a plan of action and a homework. And I'm gonna, start first and go first, man. My plan of action and my homework is find out a way that you can use spoken word, to provide some kind of therapy and healing, whether it's getting together with a group of people and do some journal writing and then do some writing prompts with someone, or if you're in a relationship, any kind of relationship, a business relationship, even you could do this at your job or your career. Just have your staff, write some, quick poetry, about the workplace, at your professional development. Or if you have a significant other, or you have a father, a son, your children, your mother or father, sit down and journal together and share some poetry together. It provides a really great, safe place to feel, heal, build, and grow. What would you say after all we discussed tonight? What's a good plan of action and homework?
I would say find ways to continue to pursue exploring your own creativity if you haven't already. Find ways to encourage folks who are going through trauma or through grief to have the opportunity to have that as a healing outlet, to honor folks who have passed, to speak their names in honor and grace and respect and reverence, to continue to utilize this pastime that is so much a part of us and of our ancestors and of our future descendants to come. Now, I'll say as well, just as an example, my daughter has a piece called Your Blooming Tree, and she shared this at 10 years old last year, just like I was 11 when I was a part of the African American Writers Alliance. She's now 11, a part of the Black Artist Showcase here in Burlington, Vermont. And her piece goes, your blooming tree is filled with ancestors, still matching the same vibrant hue. Cinnamon, hazelnut, almond, all you. Never forget that they fought for your freedom. They have the same brilliant blacknesses who will come. Chocolate bean, night sky, native to here. We got so much love from our people, it's sheer. Coffee bean, night sky, and all in between. We have come so far that we're all kings and queens. When they tell us go back, I don't know what they mean. We aren't part of some type of creepy disguise. So what do you see in those green blue eyes? Do you see some type of scar that reminds you of our past? Will you ever feel our pain, or are you just a useless cast? Will you ever learn how to embrace the people who have the darker face? The past we've been through you cannot erase by putting up colorful signs and closing the case. We are the leaders of this pack. We found the needle in the thick haystack. Chocolate skin should not be a sin. Passing should not be passed down to kin. The blooms of this tree will never stop flowering. Always do right, and the tree will be towering. That's Amina.
Peace, peace. And on that note, man, we're gonna sign off. But I think it's dope that you grew up reciting your poetry, your mother's poetry, and now she grows up hearing her father recite her poetry. That's a beautiful cycle right there. Hey, it's been Rajnii Eddins. Make sure you get a hold of him at rajnieeddins.com. Make sure you email him at their names are mine at gmail.com. And on that note, we out. We love y'all.